Hello everyone, my name is Latvat Vyas and in this video I'm going to cover a very useful tool in Excel called Solver. This video covers a brief introduction to Solver, how to formulate a problem and create a model in an Excel spreadsheet, and finally how to use Solver, or you can say set it up to get the solution. Let's get started with a brief introduction. So Solver basically helps you to find optimal solutions to a variety of problems faced in the business world. These business problems have complex features. From my experience, whether the problem be business or personal, most of the time the solution lies in finding out how to use a resource to generate maximum benefit. For example, when someone has too many things to do in a particular time period, they try to maximize the benefit or output resulting from the usage of time. In other words, they allocate available resource time in the best possible way. Time allocation is a problem because everybody has constraints. Constraints like 24 hours in a day, limited capability being a human being, and a few others to list. Similar optimizing problems come up in business world, obviously with more complexity. Mostly businesses try to maximize profits or minimize costs given a set of constraints. Those who are working or managing a business will understand this better. In such situation, most of the times, Solver can be used to find a solution. All we need to do is understand the problem, formulate a model using variables and equations on a spreadsheet, and set it up in Solver, and Solver does the rest. To get a better understanding, we will cover a basic linear programming problem and solve it using Solver. So let's quickly move to the problem, and at the end of the video you will have a much more clearer picture. Before moving to the problem, let's look at the components of the problem. Every solver has three main components and you can see them on the screen. Decision variable is what you're looking for, like how many units to make to have maximum profits, or let's say which vendor to acquire inputs from to minimize the cost. Objective function is a linear function involving decision variables. A simple way is to say that a decision variable should be such that when substituted in the objective function, the result is maximum or minimum as required. Constraints are our limitations in a way, like limited material supply, or let's say man-hour supply is limited, and so on. Non-negativity is that you cannot have minus 1 units produced, if that makes sense. So the problem I chose is of an airline trying to find out how many of each type of planes to buy to maximize its profit. I have summarized the problem here to make it easier to understand. I will first explain it and then we can move to setting up a spreadsheet and using the solver to get the solution. You can see the cost for each type of plane here, the profit they generate. You can see the budget constraint here. You can see that there is a constraint on maintenance time the company has in all totally. You can see here the number of maximum pilots the company can have for the given time period. Yeah, but the constraint involving maintenance time looks like a little complicated. It's easy to understand that we have time to maintain 40 planes, but how many medium and large planes can we maintain in the same time? So we convert everything in terms of short type of plane. So here you can see maintaining a medium plane is like maintaining 1.33 times short plane, and a large plane is maintaining like 1.66 short planes. Now let's assume that the number of large plane is what is L, medium one is M, and small is S. So here there is a linear equation which represents our total profit, that is number of each type of plane multiplied by profit each of them generates. Similarly, we can easily write up the budget constraint, the maintenance constraint and the constraint we have on the total number of pilots. Finally, let's move to setting up the spreadsheet and using Solver. We need to be very careful in this task or else we'll end up moving in circles and in more confusion. For that, we make sure that we color different components. For ease and standardization, inputs are in orange, the constraints are in green, variables in some shade of blue, and our objective in, let's say, turquoise color. One more important part is understanding the sum product function in Excel. Sum product multiplies two arrays of same dimensions and sums it up. So for example, I've used sum product for our total profit cell. What this says is that multiply this array with this array and sum it up. So the number of large planes will be multiplied by its profit, medium with its profit, small planes with its profit, and it will be added up to get our total profit. The same goes for our three different constraints. The capital constraint, you can see, multiplies the cost of each plane with the number solver gets, and this column will then represent our total capital expenditure. This one is again sum product of this array and this array, and this one is the sum product of this array and this array. And one thing we can see here is that we've set up the constraints here. This total cannot exceed 150, so this total has to be below or equal to 150 because our budget is 150 million. The number of pilots cannot exceed 30 and the maintenance hours cannot exceed 40. Finally, we move to set this up in the solver so that we get the solution. For that, make sure solver is added as an add-in to your Excel. If you add solver in your Excel and click on the data tab here, you can see an option of solver here. If you already have some problem, you can just reset everything so everything goes back to normal. I've labeled everything here so that it is helpful for us to set it up here. So what we are going to tell solver is that please maximize this cell by changing values in these cells subject to these constraints. And the constraints are all of these have to be less than or equal to all of these. We can add another constraint that these numbers have to be integer, as number of planes cannot be fractions. And finally, we'll say that these numbers have to be greater than or equal to 0 because we cannot buy negative planes. Here we have three different options, but we'll choose simplex linear programming for our problem. Once you click solve, the solver will calculate, and if there is no error, it will give you a solution. You can look here that now the solver solution is telling us you should buy 14 large planes and 16 small planes, and this will be your maximum profit. I have put the full problem on one of these spreadsheets or workbook, you can say. This is the whole problem and this is what I had summarized. One more thing about solver or LPP, you can say, is that all the parameters are known with certainty, which doesn't happen in the real world. But if all these things are known by exact numbers, you can probably set up in solver and can get the solution. Hope this video was helpful and you liked it. Thank you so much.